Before the transformation into the Soviet Union in 1917, Russia was known as the Russian Empire, which lasted from 1721 to 1917. The Russian Empire, also known as Tsarist Russia, had a monarchist government, which its last ruler, Nicholas II. Before the Russian Revolution, Russia was one of the most impoverished countries in Europe and Asia, as they practiced serfdom, a form of feudalism. This meant the economy of Russia heavily relied on the work of peasants and farmers, which slowed down the productivity and entire economy as a whole. Eventually, in 1861, serfdom was abolished with the Emancipation Manifesto of 1861, which eventually gave way to the late introduction of the Industrial Revolution in Russia. During the late 1800s and 1900s, most of the population of Russia cities grew enormously, which brought more people to the industrial factories as a result. But this meant the cities could not hold as many people, which meant cities were overcrowded and many people lived in horrible conditions, especially industrial workers. These were many reasons as why there were revolutions in Russia, beginning with the introduction of the late Industrial Revolution in Russia. Many cities became overcrowded, and many people lived in horrible conditions, especially industrial workers. Added negative effects of the Crimean War from 1853 to 1856 also weakened Russia because of frequent famines, as well as losing the war. The Russo-Japanese War also had the same effects on Russia. It lost many assets, which led to another defeat. Many Russians realized how horrible the rule of the Tsars were, which led to a series of large protests of Russian workers, eventually leading to the infamous Bloody Sunday massacre of 1905, where many unarmed people were killed or wounded by the Tsar's troops, which was the beginning of the First Russian Revolution, which occurred in 1905, but was not as successful as the Second Russian Revolution in 1917, with the second lasting for 6 years until 1923. This incident sparked a series of strikes throughout the country, with many workers and laborers joining the cause, leading to the formation of a worker-dominated council called the Soviets. The events of the Bloody Sunday Massacre of 1905 sparked a series of strikes throughout the country, with many workers and laborers joining the cause. As a result, a dual power was established in early 1917, consisting of the Petrograd Soviet and the Russian Provisional Government. This meant that the power was shared equally between both political parties making decisions, although this meant there was an increased risk for disagreement, and both parties had significantly contrasting doctrines and views. Due to their views, Russia fell into a civil war in November of 1917, which was led by the Bolshevik Party leader Vladimir Lenin, who led the Russian Revolution, also known as the Bolshevik Revolution. This led to the formation of two factions, the Red Army who fought for Lenin and the White Army who fought against the revolution. The Russian Revolution and Civil War lasted for 6 years and ended in 1923, with Vladimir Lenin's Red Army claiming victory over the White Army, which led by Tsarist loyalists. Many things regarding the political, economical, and social aspects of Russia changed after the end of the Second Revolution and Civil War. First off, the Russian Empire fell due to the White Army being overwhelmed by Vladimir Lenin's Red Army. This led to the creation of the Union of the Soviet Socialist Republic, or the USSR, or the Soviet Union, and the unification of the entire nation known as a single-party communist state. Communism is a political theory with its foundations put by Karl Marx. It advocated the sharing of wealth and property equally among everyone, making it publicly owned. This means an absence in privately owned property and wealth, which is thought to reduce inequality between social classes as well as to improve the economy. After Vladimir Lenin's death in 1924, Joseph Stalin was the next in line. Stalin brought many changes to the industrial sector, economy, and political side of the Soviet Union. First off, before Stalin, the Cheka, the first Soviet state security organization, established a Soviet system of forced labor camps called the Gulag. However, the number of laborers were not significant until the early 1930s, when Joseph Stalin came into power. The Gulag housed many prisoners and criminals of the Soviet Union and was used to boost the growth of the industrialization and extraction of natural resources, as well as to inform said criminals through labor. Many of the conditions, however, were extremely harsh, with the laborers starving, working long hours, and working in unsanitary conditions. This meant the death rate for these conditions skyrocketed as thousands died. In 1928, Stalin introduced the first 5-year plan, which called for the rapid industrialization of the Soviet economy with unrealistic goals. Because of Stalin's efforts, the Soviet Union economy was significantly improved. After his 5-year plan, coal production increased 84%, oil increased 90%, steel production increased 37%, and electricity increased by 168%. However, this development in the industrial sector came with a negative side effects, as there was a decline in agricultural production. This led to a famine across the USSR as a result of millions of farmers dying and hundreds of thousands were imprisoned in labor camps. These changes also helped the Soviet Union with their involvement in World War II as it allowed Russia to have a surplus of military supplies which assisted as their victory against Nazi Germany and Hitler.